Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Oh, I wasn't expecting you until a little bit later. Come on in, come on in. Please, please. No, that was nothing. Please, don't worry yourself about that. Thank you very much for coming. Like I said, I wasn't expecting you so soon. I would have, cleaned up a little bit. But thank you very much for coming. We have some wonderful stories this evening. That's what you're here for. And seeing as how these are spooky stories, I would like to mention an excellent contest that you should check out. Vampires Spooky Contest. I'll place a link below. It's an excellent contest with very excellent prizes. Sog Trident, Kershaw Trimmer, and the grand prize is none other than a Spyderco knife and a Phoenix flashlight that can be seen from outer space when lit and pointed at the sky. So, on to the stories. I have a request from a fellow whose username is unpronounceable, and I will give him a shout out in the description. Thank you very much. You know who you are. And like that. This one, I'm going to recommend that you listen to it before you allow your children to hear it, okay? Just in case. Don't Turn on the Light. Retold by S.E. Schlosser. She commandeered the room in the basement of her dorm as soon as she realized she would have to pull an all-nighter in order to prepare for tomorrow's exam. Her roommate, Jenna, liked to go to bed early, so she packed up everything she thought she would need and went downstairs to study. And study. And study some more. It was 2 o'clock when she realized that she'd left one of the textbooks upstairs on her bed. With a dramatic sigh, she rose and climbed the stairs slowly to her 3rd floor dorm room. The lights were dim in the long hallway, and the old boards creaked under her weary tread. She reached her room and she turned the handle as softly as she could, pushing the door open just enough to slip inside so that the hall lights wouldn't wake her roommate. The room was filled with a strange metallic smell. She frowned a bit, her arms breaking out in chills. There was a strange feeling of malice in the room, as if a malevolent gaze were fixed upon her. It was a mind trick, the all-nighter. It was catching up with her. She could hear Jenna breathing on the far side of the room, a heavy sound, almost as if she had been running. Jenna must have picked up a cold during the last tense week before finals. She crept along the wall until she reached her bed, groping among the covers for the stray history textbook. In the silence, she could hear a steady drip, 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 dripping sound. She sighed silently. Facilities would have to come and fix the sink in the bathroom again. Her fingers closed on the textbook. She picked it up softly and withdrew from the room as silently as she could. Relieved to be out of the room, she hurried back downstairs, collapsed into an overstuffed chair, and continued to study until 6 o'clock. She finally decided that enough was enough. If she slipped upstairs now, she could get a couple hours sleep before her 9 o'clock exam. The first of the sun's rays were beaming through the windows as she slowly slid the door open, hoping not to wake Jenna. Her nose was met by an earthy, metallic, coppery smell. A second before her eyes registered the scene in her dorm room. Jenna was spread-eagled on top of her bed against the far wall, her throat cut from ear to ear and her nightdress stained with blood. 2 drops of blood fell from the saturated blanket with a drip, drip noise. This sounded just like a leaky bathroom faucet. Scream after scream poured from her mouth. But she couldn't stop herself any more than she could cease wringing her hands. All along the hallway, doors slammed and footsteps came running down the passage. Within moments, other students had gathered in her doorway. And one of her friends gripped her arm with a shaking hand and pointed a trembling finger at the wall. Her eyes widened in shock at what she saw, and she fainted into her friend's arms. On the wall, above her bed, written in her roommate's blood, were the words, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light last night?" Alright, I'll give the gentleman a shout out who recommended this story, requested it. Thank you very much, OBAM. Oh man, I should have written it down, the letters, OBAM, maybe TD something. I'll have it down there. I'm sorry, man. I didn't memorize it that well. Alright, now, that being done, oh, and please remember to check out the updaters to the Zombinator contest, okay? This one I just feel like I have to do. I have to do it. I'm taking English 102, you know, taking care of a core requirement. I have an excellent teacher, the foundation in literature. And it's a lot of work, but worth it. I believe I'll be a better writer. I have to do it for my BHS program. I want to help people one day, you know. I want to help them so that I can get them into my clutches. I'm going to do The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. And I hope I don't massacre it too horribly. But if I do, it's okay. Because the veil between this world and the next grows thin, and it'll make no difference. Because the world ends at midnight 01, Greenwich Mean Time. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." Distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see, then, what threat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of nevermore. But the raven still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous fiend of yore meant in croaking, Nevermore. Thus I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing, to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining, with the lamplight gloated o'er. But whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor, Wretch, I cried, that God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff that kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted. Oh, this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked up starting, get thee back into the tempest, and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamp light o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore. Great, great poem. Think about it. So, remember, please check out Wampire's Spooky Contest. Thank you, Wampire, for being the person that you are. And everybody, this is Primal Punch saying, look out behind you. Watch out. You better turn around. Look behind you. Respect each other. Have a safe and happy Halloween. And as always, punch hard.